I've gotten questions throughout the years about what do you do to grow your locks so long? Hello, I'm ibyl. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, so glad you clicked on this video. If you are one of my OGs, thank you for tuning in again. Today I'm going to be talking about if your locks are breaking or thinning along the shaft of the lock, along the length of the lock. You're probably doing one of these 5 things. It's important to be aware of those things so you can stop doing them and then try to remedy the issue if you can. I've gotten questions throughout the years about what do you do to grow your locks so long? I've been growing my locks for about 15 years and I'm not a lock professional. I am a lock enthusiast, and so I've learned a thing or two, done a little research, and been very careful, I would say, along my lock journey, because my goal from the beginning was always, I want to grow my locks as long as I can and make sure I have healthy locks. And so I've gotten questions asking me how I've been able to grow my locks so long, as well as people sharing with me, like once their locks get to a certain length, they break off, or they notice their locks are breaking. And when I start asking them questions, like I'm getting these questions, a direct message in my Instagram. And so when I start asking them questions to kind of troubleshoot what the issue could be, typically it's one of these 5 things. And if not one of these 5 things, consider your health, your diet, any medicines you're taking that could play a part. Age even plays a part as well. Our hair changes and it's different the older we get. All those things could be a factor in addition to the 5 things I want to talk about. If you realize that you're not doing any of those things and something's still going on with your locks. All right, so the 5 things in no particular order. Number 1, weak foundation, or you have gaps in your lock from inconsistent retightenings. I noticed this as more of an issue with people who have smaller locks. I'm not sure if that's the same situation with people who have traditional locks or thicker locks, but typically when you have smaller locks, they are not as strong when you have inconsistent retightening. So like one time you're doing 6 weeks, one time you're doing 12 weeks, one time you're doing 3 months between your retightenings, ends up creating weak points in your locks. Or if your locks were installed or started and it wasn't a good foundation for whatever reason, usually when you're getting your locks done professionally, those things are caught in the beginning. Like no one's going to start locks on damaged hair. Even though you're locking your hair, you don't want to start with damaged hair. As far as the gaps in time between when you are retightening your locks, you can cause weak points. And those weak points wear and wear and wear until they break, wherever those weak points are. So that's one of the ways your locks are gonna break along the shaft. Another way is tension styles or ponytail holders. So if you are wearing styles that are super tight and you're keeping those in for extended period of time, that can pull and pull on the lock strands and weaken them. Now keep in mind, locks are durable, they're strong, they're resilient, but if you continue to pull and pull and pull on them in tension styles, they will eventually give and break. And then ponytail holders, if you're always pulling your hair back into a ponytail, where the ponytail holder lands, it can cause a weak point in certain locks. And then just the pulling back can cause weak points in your locks as well. I know from my experience and what I've mainly looked at is usually people with smaller locks. If you have thicker locks, even traditional locks that are small can also be affected. But typically when you have thicker locks, it may not be as much of a challenge for you because you have more hair that's wrapping around. Let me know in the comments if you're someone with thicker locks but you also have experienced any of these, or some additional things to consider that could possibly cause a lock to break along the shaft. 3rd one, over coloring your locks, bleaching your locks. That can cause weakness in your locks. I would caution anyone to, if you can, get your locks professionally colored, because the professionals typically know what they're doing. When I got my hair colored like over, 11 years ago? Yes, I got it done professionally because I have no clue. Like I can DIY some stuff, but when it comes to my hair, I typically just try to stick to what I know, and if I don't know it, go get it done professionally, or learn a little bit. But when it comes to chemicals and stuff, I leave it to professionals. So if you're someone that likes to experiment, that's your hair, you have your freedom to do that. Personally, I wouldn't, because I know what's at jeopardy. I could cause something to go completely wrong, and then I have to worry about troubleshooting and repairing it. But overcoloring your hair, one color is fine, but sometimes people want to change their color a lot. And yes, you have natural hair. That means you're not worrying about chemicals from perms, but putting a hair down your hair is a chemical. And even though our hair is strong and resilient, those chemicals can break down our hair and eventually cause our locks to break. So I caution you to be mindful of what you're using to color your hair. I know there's some colors that are safer than others and not as harsh on the hair. So no matter whatever color you're doing, if you're getting black to refresh your own black hair color, still keep in mind the ingredients in the hair dye. And if you're bleaching your hair, bleaching is definitely harsh, super harsh on the hair. And go into it knowing that things can go well for you, or they can go completely horrible. So the fourth thing you could be doing that's causing your locks to break or thin is not having a moisture routine. And so your locks are dry. Dry locks tend to break. Moisture routine is very important. Hydration is very important. And hydration is not only what you put on your hair externally, but also internally. So eating foods that are rich in water, drinking water is important as well. The products you're using, so it goes all the way back to when you're shampooing. Shampooing on a consistent schedule, because that's the time when we're saturating, immersing our whole head of locks in water. That's important. Making sure your shampoo is not stripping too much, and if you do strip your hair with the shampoo, you're adding that moisture back in. You're steaming, you're adding in rose water, and whatever else you want to use to add moisture to your hair. So making sure not to let your locks dry out. Moisture is important. The fifth thing you could be doing that's causing your locks to break or thin along the shaft of the lock is picking at your lock. No one wants to deal with unsightly lint being in your lock or product buildup. And so sometimes we may pick at our lock, like, oh, let me just get out this one little piece. And especially with thinner locks, once you go in picking with your nail or with tweezers or whatever it is, you're breaking the hair around the lock that's keeping it locked. And you may not notice it that day, maybe even not the next week or 3 weeks. But then you start notice that that same lock you were picking at is now thin in a spot. And that thin spot's going to eventually break off from the picking. So it may not seem like much in the moment, but it will eventually lead to that lock weakening, thinning, and then breaking off. No one wants to have lint in their hair, so there's some things you can do to be proactive. I'll be sharing that in an upcoming video to be proactive when it comes to lint. I've already shared a video about being proactive in terms of product buildup, so you won't have those issues and you can avoid as much as possible. If you're seeing this video like, well, I've already been dealing with lint because I wasn't aware, I wasn't thinking about those things, I've already been dealing with product buildup, there's still other things you can do to be reactive to those things. All hope is not lost. Those are the 5 things you could be doing that's causing your locks to thin along the shaft of the lock or causing it to break off completely. Let me know in the comment box below any other things you want to add to this list, any things that you've experienced that pertains to anything I've talked about in this video. As I said at the very beginning, if it's not one of those 5 things, keep in mind age, keep in mind health, keep in mind your lifestyle, your diet, that can also play a part in the locks being compromised or whatever, if those things are not what you're doing. Also, keep in mind that when we're doing things to our locks, no matter what it may be, the tension, drying them out, overcoloring, picking our lock, as I said, you may not see it that day. You may not even see it the next day. You may not even see it 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months down the line. But the locks remember, and they're going to eventually show the damage that have been done. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you made it to this point in the video, drop me some hearts, drop me some comments, like, share, and just want to say thank you for those who've been tuning in. I see you all, your comments. I heart them every time I see them, as well as comment. And then sometimes I take your comments and I make a video because everyone doesn't see my comment to one specific person. So I just want to thank you so much. I am going to be putting out at least 2 videos for the month of August. So this page is going to be rolling in content. Let me know if you have any suggestions for videos you want to see me make, hair related, any other videos that are not hair related. Let me know, drop your suggestions, and I will see if I get them in the rotation. Thank you all for rocking with me. For everyone that's new here, it's your first video, and you've made it this far, you gotta go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when I make a new video. And for my OGs, you have a place in my heart. Thank you so much for sticking around. Remember to keep it fly, keep it fabulous, and I will see your beautiful faces in the next video.